Hey everybody, how you doing? And welcome to the Focus on Greatness podcast. My name is Hiram Roche, and as always, I am excited to be here with you this night. And so, do me a favor as you come in, as always, make sure you allow me to be able to know where you are viewing, where you are listening to this. And for those that are probably listening for the very first time, make sure that you subscribe on all podcast platforms. Go to Apple Podcasts, make sure you subscribe, and just throw me a hi in the comment. Let me know that you have joined the Greatness Tribe. And so tonight, as always, I am very, very excited to be with you and to be able to have these conversations with you. We have been, I would say, on a great journey together, where we have talked about, being vulnerable, where we have talked about the importance of conversation, where we have talked about being able to recognize and know the type of people that you are open and honest and transparent with. We have been going through this journey, and one of the things I recognize is that while we are going through these journeys and walking through these paths and walking through these steps together, I recognize that all of this requires change. Every journey begins with a single step, but what if you knew exactly where that journey was meant to end? I wrote the book for people like you, people that have dreams, people that have goals, people that want to walk in their own business, create their own legacy, but just don't know where to start. This book is a handbook. It's a bunch of tools that gives you the steps that you'll need to be able to walk into the destiny, the dream, life that you desire and should have for you. And start with the finish in mind. You'll discover how to redefine your purpose, build on actionable roadmap, and stay focused on the outcome that truly matters. With practical advice, real life stories, and a faith-driven approach, Start with the Finish in Mind will equip you to set clear, purpose-filled objectives, navigate challenges with resilience, and build a legacy that you'll be proud of. Start with the Finish in Mind by Hiram Roche, your guide to purposeful living and lasting success. Like one way or another, we have to change for these things to be able to happen the way that we are requiring or wanting them to be able to happen. For us to change the type of person in this aspect that has been closed off, to now be able to be a person that's open and transparent, to change in reference to certain environments of who we speak to, in reference to who we share things with, and who we're looking for. Like being able to change certain things in our lives is really what's starting to happen through these conversations, and it's kind of pushing against some things and pushing on some buttons for us to be able to recognize some stuff, see some things, for us to be able to change. But what I also, in this journey of us going, I'm not having these conversations just randomly, right? These conversations are intentional. The reason why they are intentional is because there is a certain destination that we're trying to get to be able to be the type of man that we want to be. We have to be emotionally strong. So that means that there are places in our lives where we have to be able to be transparent. There are places in our lives where we have to be vulnerable. But being a man is not only being this great protector, which it is, but it's not only that. We're not limited by just being a protector. We're not limited by just being someone that can provide. We're not limited by some of the cliche things that have been put on us. No, we also are walking in other pieces where we have feelings that need to be expressed, that need to be shared, and we have been walking through these things. And so the full and the wholeness of who we are has to be able to be expressed so that we can be able to walk in the fullness of who we are. And what that requires is this thing called change. Just like we see the different changes of cities or seasons, where in reference to different weather seasons, and we see different changes that are happening in our lives, all of that comes with change. It comes with walking in progression. It comes with going after things. This is a part of what we call life as we continue to progress. And so while I was thinking about this context of where we're going in this concept of change, and as we are continually developing and going forward and walking into these new places in our lives, it started to make me think about sometimes some of the feelings that come with change. So, yes, when we are changing from one position to another, we have positive change. So, that's a positive change. And so we're excited about it. We are happy about it. But let me ask you this question. Hey, Dad, I see you on here. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever had a positive change happen in your life? Right, you're excited about the promotion. You're excited about starting school, going to college, or you're excited about the marriage that you're about to walk into. You're excited about about these new things and adventures that you're going after. Have you ever been excited about those things? Right, happy. But then you have a moment in the midst of your excitement while things are still going good before anything starts going crazy, or the ups and downs of new things happening and you learning new levels and things, all of those things that come along in the future. We haven't gotten there yet. But normally, have you ever had this feeling when you walk into change, you step into this new environment in your life, in this new season in your life? Have you just had a moment where feelings wise, internally, you just felt like something was off? Like something wasn't right. I mean, everything outside looks like it's going good because you just got a promotion, you just got this change happening in your life, and so all of these things has transpired. But it feels, something feels internally. It feels, something just feels not right yet. It's just, I know that I'm getting this change, and I know that these new things are happening, and I know that I'm walking into this new season. But internally, something feels off. Have you ever just had that feeling? I know I have. And so this morning, as I was thinking about tonight and this conversation that we were going to have tonight, and thought about the changes that was happening, I thought about all the things that we're going to go through and experience. And as we were thinking about these things, I started to think about and see and look at the feeling. Let's identify what that feeling is, because I'm feeling it now. You know, for you that have been rocking with me, you understand there's been some changes happening in my life. It's, I would say, positive changes and exciting things and new adventures and all of these new pieces that are happening in my life, and they're changes. But then there's this feeling. It's this thing inside that just, it feels like, I don't know if it feels like I'm not settled. Eh, Sometimes I'm feeling frustrated. Sometimes I'm feeling a little bit angry. I'm agitated, a little bit easier, and sometimes it may be that I feel like I need to distance myself from people. And what is this feeling in the midst of happy things happening? Like good things are happening. What is this feeling that is happening? And so I picked up a book that my cousin gave to me, or told me about. And this was some time back. He had told me about this, and I had read it, read a little bit of it, I would say that way, and pass. But this morning when I woke up, I just felt like I needed to go back and to read this book so I can understand what this feeling is. The feeling that I know I'm feeling, the feeling that you might be feeling when you're talking about change. What is this feeling when excitement and happiness is happening all around me, but and I'm happy at times, and then I feel sad? I think that this is what this is. I'm going to read this statement, and this is what this statement says. Grief, this is what I feel like it is. Grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. Hmm. Grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. So when we talk about change, when we're talking about new seasons in our life, when we're talking about that we are moving and transitioning out of different places and old mindsets, old things, when we're talking about having changes in our lives, It's changing a pattern of behavior, something that you were used to doing. Something that your behavior that you've been doing it for a while. This has been normal. Like for example, have you ever had? I remember. I'll give this for me. I remember um, that for years and years and years, I had a certain pattern, right? And this pattern was when I felt like there was a certain change that happened in my life, right? There were certain changes or new things or a new environment or whatever that transitions that were happening in my life as I was developing as a person, as a man, as a husband, then as a father. When certain things were happening, right? When these changes were happening, I recognized that there was a pattern that I would do. I would get on the phone and I would call my uncle. And it was always this pattern going where I went every change, every transition, I would call him. He would give me wisdom on how I function into this new season because I recognized that he had been in these seasons before. And so I would call him so that I can be able to understand how do I navigate through this new season. I mean, that normally looks like it's regular, but that was a pattern, a familiar pattern that I did. But then there was a change that happened. The change was he passed away. And right after he passed away, I had a change. And the change that happened then in my life was I was I was transitioning out of being the youth pastor or youth leader at our church at the Christian House of Prayer, Killeen, Texas. So these two changes was happening, but here is where this grief context comes in. I was so used to picking up the phone to call him that even though he was no longer here, I remember leaving the office after the conversation with my bishop at the time, and I remember getting in my car, and I remember the first person that I was about to call was my uncle, but something had changed. There was something that was no longer there. There was a change that happened, but it was a familiar pattern that I remembered that I would normally do. And in that moment, there was a conflict. The conflict in that moment was one, man, I can't call him no more. But two, man, I got to figure this out. One was a part of what had happened, past tense, things that were in the past. The other one was based upon the future. But because of a change, not only the change that was happening in my life, but there was a change in the fullness of the circumstance that had now had to change the type of behavior. It impacted the behavior, the familiar behavior that I normally had. Now I cannot do that no longer because of change, which then brought some form of grief. Not only was I grieving over him passing, but I was grieving because I cannot do it no longer the way that it used to be done. But also, I'm grieving because now I have to do things different. There is a change. And so, as we're going through these changes in our lives from one place to another, one situation from another, reality is we're in that same conflict. Remembering how we used to do it based upon the familiar behavior that we had, and then recognizing also in this moment that we are changing the familiar behavior, the way we used to act, the way we used to approach situations, the way we used to do this thing, the way I used to go to this job, the way I used to talk to these type of friends. There are things that are changing, but now it's a conflict because I used to do it this way, but I can't do it that way no longer. And now I'm conflicted internally because I remember that, but I don't want that anymore. I want this, and there's a conflict. And then that conflict is what breeds this feeling of grief. So the question for me, for you, when it comes to where we are in our lives, is can you recognize that Grief. Can you recognize where you are right now? Can you recognize the way that you are feeling right now in the midst of this change? Because change is happening. Every time that you have made the conscious choice to say that I don't want to be where I was, I want to walk into where I need to go, that means that you have made a conscious decision to change. And what happens is, in this midst of us changing, we realize that there is something that we missed. There's things that we missed that we used to do. You remember those conversations that you talk about, the things that you used to do that you no longer do anymore, but you when you were doing them, they were fun, they were exciting. There was things that you missed in those times, but you recognize and you know that you can no longer do that any longer, because why? You've changed. You've changed. And sometimes the grief that we feel is because of this change. Now, I know you're probably saying, Hiram, now why are you using this word grief? Because grief, Hiram, is not doing what you're talking about. That's not grief. That's not grief. Grief is when somebody passes away, right? Grief is when you lose your when you grieve over the pet that you used to have. Ain't that grief? Those are griefs, but those are not the only way that we grieve. Here's what the book says, and I'm gonna give you the title of this book. Also, might put it in the description. It says, while death and divorce are obvious when we're talking about grief, many other loss experience has been identified that can produce grief. Among them are death of a pet, moving, starting school, death of a former spouse, marriage, graduation, end of addictions, major health changes, retirement, financial changes that's positive or negative, holidays, legal problems, empty nest. These are all things that are other loss experiences that we have that they have identified that produces grief. Now wait a minute, let's take a pause, because I need us to be on the same page here. How can moving bring grief? Because you have left one season and you're walking into a new one. Wait a minute, Hiram. How can marriage produce grief? Because you have left one season and you're walking into a new one. How can graduation produce grief? Because you have left one season and you're walking into a next. Let's go back to what they define grief as. Grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. So that's how you can grieve when you graduate. That's how you can be grieving when you get married. That's how you can grieve. Now, Hiram, why are you talking about this? This is very simple. Because if we can't identify why we feel the way we feel when change happens, sometimes we can feel that this internal feeling that we're feeling means that what we're doing is wrong. Where we're at is the wrong place. Where we're going is the wrong direction. If we can't identify the feeling, so we have to be able to identify why we feel the way that we feel when everything around this new change looks positive. The reason why we feel the way we feel is because you are grieving the death of the old season. For those that are watching me live, I want you to put this in the comment section. Grieving the death of the old season, the death of the old season. Because if we're saying that we want change, if we're saying that we want to walk in a new, if we're saying that we don't want to be where we are anymore, we don't want the type of relationships that we're in, we don't like the type, we want to change the way our money looks, we want to be able to change the way we think about certain things, we want to be able to change certain actions. If we're saying this is what we want to change, then we have to be able to come to an understanding that when you make the change, you are putting to death the old to walk into the new. So change brings on a funeral service. I'm because we want to change. That means that there's something that has to die. There's something that I have to leave behind. There's some people that we choose to leave behind when we make changes. So we've been making changes. We've been talking and making different changes and adjustments from since basically from the almost the top of the year until now. We've been making changes and adjustments back and forth and on and on. And as we continue on throughout the year, there are going to be changes that are going to happen. But what I want us to make sure that we recognize is what this specific feeling is. Why? Because change by itself is a stress point. Change by itself is hard. Change by itself can be a struggle. Change by itself comes with its own weight and its own stress. That's why some people say that change is hard. So if change is hard, then we have to recognize that's a stress by itself. But why is change hard? Because I'm not talking about changing other people is hard. I'm talking about changing you is hard. And some of the reason why changing you is hard is because the way that you change is you have to change the pattern, the familiar pattern of behavior. But when you start to change the familiar pattern of behavior, what also that does is that brings on the feeling of grief. And I need us to recognize this. I need us to be able to identify this because, okay, for example, let me just make it as plain as possible tonight while we on here talking. Here's the reality. When I moved from Texas, for those that know, when I moved from Texas to come to Colorado, that was a major change. I'm talking about major. Now, I want to show you how major that was for me. One, I have basically all of my life lived in Texas. All of my life. I have been in Coppers Cove, Killeen, Texas, all of my life. Small little beautiful town, but all of my life that is all I know in some sense. Like that's all I was raised around. And also on top of that, that's the only place, this is the only space and time I have never been, hear what I'm about to tell you. I've never been not in the same city of my mom. Like me and my mom have always been close to close, next, like real close to each other. We've always been in the same city all my entire life. So for me to transition from Killeen to move to Colorado by itself was a major change. Then, on top of that, moving away from my mom was a major change. Moving away from the friends that I have been able to build over the years was a major change. Moving from the environment that I was raised in was a major change. But with this major change that happened in my life, I was excited to move to Colorado. Your boy was excited, I'm telling you. I was very excited to be here because I knew why I was here. I knew why me and my family was moving to Colorado. I knew we was on an assignment from God, and I'm excited about the assignment. But then what ended up happening is I was here and was sad. I mean, dude was feeling, I was feeling some type of way. I'm making phone calls, calling some people that I trust and having conversations with my wife. And I'm like, why am I feeling like this? This is what we have been waiting to do. So why am I sad in this moment? Am I depressed? Nope, that's not your reason, Hiram. What is going on? Is it because of this or is it because of that? Nope, that's not why. It's because you've changed. You've moved, son. But you're grieving that you have left where you were. And here's the reality of all of our context of this grief. You wouldn't go back if you wanted to. You wouldn't go back if you had the option. Yeah, you might miss certain pieces. Yeah, you can look at the picture of what used to be and certain things you would say, "Ah, man, that was fun there, but man, I don't like that." You wouldn't change to go back. Because why? You wanted to move forward. You wanted to progress forward. You wanted to be able to create that. You wanted to be able to do this new thing. So going back to the way it used to be is not an option for you. But internally, you are still grieving the process of there is something that I've lost. There's something that I've left behind. Not in a negative, it's just gone. That season is over, and we grieve. The person that graduates from high school, they are excited that they are done with high school. They're done with that season of their life. And now they're about to walk across the stage, and now they're about to grab their diploma, and they're about to go into a new season of their life. But guess what? They are also at the same time internally grieving that they are now ending a new season. They're ending an old season to walk into the new. So as we're wrapping up the month of April and we're about to walk into the month of May, I wanted to make sure that we had this conversation because sometimes, again, when we don't understand this, when we don't understand this feeling, what this feeling really is, when we don't understand it, then sometimes we can make the assumption. I'm telling you, I did. I made the assumption. I was like, man, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe this wasn't what we were supposed to do. Maybe this was a wrong move to make. That's probably why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. No, Hiram, that's not why. The reason why you're feeling the way you're feeling is because you've made a right decision, but you also are grieving that old season of your life. And the same thing is for you. You are progressing, you are growing, you are changing, you are evolving over and over again, and you are walking into a new seasons of your life. But as you're walking into this new season, I need you to understand this part of the process of your change. Because the reality of where I see us going, right, with the podcast conversations, the reality of where I see us moving and going to, there's going to be conversations that are going to be very difficult to have. There are going to be conversations that are going to push some buttons of your thought process, of your belief system, of how you feel about things, of how you look at things. It's going to touch those buttons because of the context of if I press this, I can get you to see something a little bit different. I can open up your eyes a little bit more to help us to get to where we're trying to go. But that requires change. And reality is, I can't force you to change. Because if I force you to change, as soon as you feel that grief, you're going to turn back around. That's why I don't force it. I'm saying we're going somewhere. You're going somewhere. You have more that you have to accomplish. You have more that you're going to walk into. And the reason that I felt so much that we needed this conversation is because you going into this next level and not recognizing grief is not going to be helpful for how you feel for the next season. You have to be able to learn how to deal with this emotion. Now, just like anything else, some grief takes longer than others. Like right now, I'm in a scenario, in a situation where I feel my new season. I feel like I'm literally, what's up, cuz? Big cuz on here. I feel like I'm literally at the door where I'm walking in out of one season, walking into a new. I literally can feel that my life is changing, me personally, not per se my environment, not per se things that are happening around me. No, me, I feel that I am growing and evolving into something new, and I can feel it. I mean, literally, I could feel this. But I also recognize that with this feeling that I'm feeling, this thing that's happening, what I also recognize is that there are some people that I have to change designations to. So what I mean by that? So there's a man by the name of Darius Daniels, Dr. Darius Daniels, right? And he makes this statement about when we're talking about emotional or relational intelligence. And he makes this statement. He says that just like, for example, a school bus, you have all these people that's piled up in the school bus, right? In life, you have your bus. You have people that are sitting in certain seats that you have designated, right? But what you start to realize as you are changing, as you are developing, as you are growing, what you start to realize is that some people are sitting in the wrong seats. So you have to start making adjustments to those people in those seats. You have to change this person from this chair to this chair and move these people over. Why? Because you have to start making adjustments. And I feel like in the season that I'm currently in, that in walking in this new place, I have to start making relational adjustments. I have to start moving people from this point to this point because I thought that this is where you were supposed to be in my life, but I recognize as I'm growing, you ain't supposed to be there. You're supposed to be over here. So I have to start making these changes with which those changes are difficult while you're making other changes. For me, that's like two griefs because I'm closing two doors because now you don't have the same type of access that you used to have to me. So all of these changes are happening and I'm feeling the emotional strain and stress of these changes. And when I started to really think about it and go through this whole thing, if I could let put my emotions on a radar, and y'all could be able to see how that looked. My emotions was sometimes going just like up and down in a quick second. And I would feel sad, real sad, when I thought about certain changes that were happening. And I realized, dude, you're grieving because you're shutting doors. You are ending a season. You're ending certain things. You're ending certain mindsets. You're ending certain pieces. And while you're ending these things, Hiram, you got to recognize that right now you're grieving. And I want you to start recognizing. So this is what I would say you do. When you start to feel the way you feel, I've said these statements before, but it always bears repeating. You have to start asking questions. I'm not talking about just some general stuff. No, you got to start asking the real questions. One of the real questions that I always try to ask myself now at this point of my life, have been through a lot of emotional journeys, and while I've been through a lot of emotional stuff, I've had assistance along that way. And I remember a friend of mine who is a therapist made this statement to me, and she said, "You have to start asking yourself why." Why am I feeling this way? What has changed? What has happened in my life recently that might be making this feeling happen? I start asking myself, okay, what's going on right now? Okay, I can see, okay, so this is changing, this is happening. Okay, but why am I feeling this way? No, I can't be feeling that way because of this action. No, why am I really feeling like what is the things that is making me feel the way I'm feeling? And once I started to dig in and started to dive in deeper, what I started to realize is, okay, Harm, I know why you're feeling this way. This is a part of my grief. Got you. You're missing the old. You feel it. You feel that I'm going to miss how this used to be. You feel I'm going to miss how this used to look. I'm going to miss how this relationship used to function. I'm going to miss how these things were. And once I start understanding and I realized what that is, that helped me to recognize the feeling that I'm having. And once I'm able to recognize how I'm feeling or why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, then I can feel it. I can allow myself the moment and the time and the space to really now feel this feeling. Instead of trying to run from it, instead of trying to distance myself from it, instead of just still working, and not identifying what the problem is. No, I now realize what it is. And now I can sit in that moment for a moment and feel it. And now I can start functioning and I can start continue moving forward and I can start processing and walking through this journey. And yes, there are still going to be moments in time where I know that I'm going to be reminded and I'm going to feel sad, and it's okay. There are moments where still to this day I can be walking, or I can hear myself talking, or I can see certain actions, or be reminded of a statement of something that my uncle would say, or something that I would see my Uncle Pete do. And I at this moment I would feel sad because why? I'm still grieving. There are things that I remember about my older cousin. I had a cousin named older cousin named Tyson Weatherspoon. He loved sports. And one of the things he used to do back in the day, way back in the day, I'm about to date this context, but one of the things he used to do is he used to record on his VHS the basketball games, and then he'll go back and he'll watch it over again and over and over and over again. And so when I watch people doing certain things that remind me of that, I smile, I laugh, but inside I'm grieving. There are certain things that I can go on and on and on of different people in my life and situations in my life that I remember. And even though they might be years, they might be months, they might be time might have went past, but there's still going to be moments where I feel the grief of the change. And again, it's okay. It's okay to feel that feeling. It's okay to grieve. It's okay. But what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to feel the way you're feeling. I don't want you to have that feeling and not only not recognize it, but not allow you to feel the feeling. I want you to feel it. I want you to be able to sit in it for a minute. I want you to understand it. So then you can walk through the process of being healed and walking through the process of seeing you strengthen and you grow and you build. Because why? Because you and because of me, we're changing, and we're changing together. I love you all. As always, you know I do. And I'm so grateful that you have chosen to be able to have these conversations with me and be on with me. Make sure that now that you know, as you are going through your seasons, ask the question why. Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? So that you can be able to identify what this is and be able to walk through it. I love you so much. And as always, I'm thankful that you're here, and make sure, as always, that you rock with me always continually right here on the Focus on Greatness podcast. I'll talk to y'all next time.